Well, good evening, everybody. How are you all today? Been a joyous week. A little bit of rain, a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of coldness, a little bit of warm weather. Kind of a wacky winter we're having this year. We need the rain, and it looks like the coastal areas are getting lots of it. Not much out here in the desert, but that's okay. Hope you all had a great day, great week, and been a busy one for me. Been doing a little more public speaking, which is nice for a change. I appreciate being able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Tonight we're talking about not assigning blame, not assigning blame. I used to live my life assigning or blaming everybody and everyone for all my problems. And what happened to me happened to you. You'd be doing the same thing too, and it was everybody else's fault, and never mind. And so that's when we start off the book on page 6 in the first chapter. We wanted to make sure that everybody knew that the book was not about assigning blame. So, like I posted this morning, this is from page 6 in my book in the first chapter. This is not a book about assigning blame. There's no blame to be assigned. The intent here is not to indict society. Rather, this is a book about healing. But in order to heal, we need to stop stigmatizing the victims. Hey, Vec, good to see you. So, we don't want to indict society, but society it has to quit stigmatizing all the victims that are out there right now. So in my journey, in my abuse days, being abused, I played the blame game for a long time, far too long. Everything was always everybody else's fault. I could never take the blame for anything that I did, And part of that was because I didn't want to be a failure. I was a perfectionist, and to fail was not an option for me. So even though I made mistakes, I wasn't going to cop to them because I was too perfect for that. And the reality was I was far from perfect. But that was then. Today I don't do that. Today I don't blame others for my faults. They're my fault. I make a mistake, and that's okay. I learn from it and I move on. I never thought I could do that as a kid growing up or as a young adult, carrying around all the shame that I was carrying from my childhood. So there's two things that are needed to start the healing process for victims. And that first one, I'll talk about for me, but for all of us, is that the first, I needed to quit playing that victim role. I needed to quit playing the blame game. And I can remember my first AA meeting, heard a guy, old crusty, called him Crusty Rusty. He says, if you're drinking because him, her, or it, you'll never quit drinking again. Hey, David, glad you're here. You'll never quit drinking. And I sat on that for a couple of days, and I saw him again at a meeting, and I says, hey, Rusty, what did you mean by that? He goes, Randy, if you're drinking because him, her, or it, if you're drinking because of anything, if you're blaming everything on you're drinking on everything that happened to you, as long as you're playing a victim, you're never going to quit drinking. And I needed to hear those words because I've been a victim for 30 plus years, 38 years. And so I had to get out of that victim role. So, and in order to do that, I had to come to accept that what happened to me. And along with quit playing that victim role, I had to accept responsibility for all my wrongdoings in life. Not on the abuse part. The abuse was not. I had no part in that. But as I grew up and all the mistakes I made and all the problems I had in my life, I had to own my part in all of those. I could no longer blame it on what happened to me in the past. So second, this is important for this is for society. We need to quit stigmatizing the victims, because it only delays, if not stops, the healing process altogether by stigmatizing the victims. They are victims. I don't live as a victim anymore. I will always be a victim of abuse. But that's not how I label myself. But it happened to me, so therefore I'm a victim of it. But I'm a victor today. But the society, we stigmatize the abuse of men, especially the abuse of men, and that does no good to help the healing process. As a society, we must quit acting like men don't get sexually abused. Okay, men do get sexually abused. In fact, 1 in 4 men before the age of 18 will be sexually abused, and we don't think that. We think the statistics are more like a 1 in 2. In fact, Johnson et al. Has a study where it is 1 in 2 were sexually abused, and the effects of the sexual abuse, they start immediately. They don't start a week later. They don't start a month later. When a child or a boy is sexually abused, even if a girl is sexually abused, the effects start immediately. The low self-esteem, the low self-worth, that kicks in right away, and it carries into our adulthood. And over time, now there is cases where people get help right away, but for those that don't get the help over time, the effects get magnified and get worse. And the drugs and the alcohol come into play because we use that as a way to anesthetize our shame and our pain. So we've just got to quit stigmatizing, and we got to come to grips that this does happen not only in America, throughout the world, and that there's a lot of broken men running around because of it. And look at here's the. I'm not out to make Western cultures wrong. Okay. However, I'm here, and my book is written to discuss what it means to be a survivor of sexual abuse. The shame you feel, the shame I feel, the shame abusers feel, the isolation and the sense of being broken or bad are not our fault. For so long we walk around with this heavy burden that, hey, man, what did I do wrong in life? What did I do to deserve this? We think it's all our fault, and just as the abuse itself was not your fault. So, we've got to as healing men come to the grips, and as healers, anybody that's in the healing field, we don't want to validate victims' actions, but we want to validate their feelings. I had a guy one time, he at a facility we talked at, and once he achieved a certain record, he felt validated as a man. And I thought afterwards, well, that's great. That's an external validation that we all need as well as a man. But whoever validated that man as a man, whoever validated his feelings, the feelings of not feeling right, the feelings of being angry all the time. So we need to make sure that we validate the feelings of the men and help them move through the victim part of it. Now, although sexual abuse of any kind is traumatic, you've got to remember that incest is particularly insidious. They say children are resilient, and it is true. If you're surrounded by a loving, supportive family system, they can heal from even the most terrible traumas. And there's about 25% of trauma victims, of abuse victims, that don't have that family support. And that's a population that really suffers a lot. They say about 75% have that kind of family support, and they go on to have a fairly normal life. If a child is violently accosted by a stranger, but can return to a loving home to heal that child has a good chance to recover at a young age. So, if it's a stranger that violates a young boy or a young girl, as long as that person, that boy, that girl can come back to a safe environment, somebody's going to get them the help that they need, somebody's going to empathize with them and understand them and love them back to health, those are the ones that generally do okay. Okay, they're the ones that do okay. I was asked once that what the difference between the trauma of sexual abuse and war is, and sexual abuse. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I was asked what the difference between the trauma of sexual abuse versus war and natural disaster was. Hey, Tammy, what the difference between the trauma of sexual abuse and war or natural trauma or disaster was. With sexual or emotional or physical or spiritual abuse, It is the trust between two human beings that's been broken. So it's that the trust of a father figure, a mentor, a cousin, a brother, a grandfather, whatever. It's that human element that's in there that makes it so traumatizing, makes us not be able to trust. Versus a natural disaster or even war, those things are out of our control. This PTSD, it's trauma. It doesn't make it any less worse or doesn't make the okay. I'm sorry, I'm tired. Doesn't make the trauma any less, but it's just the difference is there's a human element that's removed from it. You think about it. For me, my abusers were supposed to be my protectors. They're the ones that were supposed to love me, the ones that were supposed to protect me, the ones that were supposed to raise me and guide me through life. Okay, and they didn't do that for me. So that's the component that really separates a natural disaster or war from the trauma of children. Some children have nowhere to go. Like me, I had nowhere to go. So we tend to normalize that abuse in order to preserve the fantasy that their home is safe and their caregivers are loving. So it must be me. I couldn't talk to nobody. The pastor of our church even said it was just a normal part of growing up. And if I say it's bad, if I say my parents, my mother, my stepfather were bad, if I say something about them, then what's going to happen to the shelter? What's going to happen to the roof over my head? So therefore, it must be me. If only I was better, only if I listened more, if only I was a better student, a better athlete, better looking, if only I obeyed my parents more, maybe this wouldn't happen. But the reality is I was 12 years old. I was a great kid when this all started happening. And it was a result of the abuse that I became very rebellious. And so it's natural for the child to make ourselves the victim, the ones that are wrong. And that carries into adulthood. Again, the exception is if that child somehow by chance has a mentor or a family member along the way that can scoop them up and get them the help they need and make them realize that, hey, you're okay. You didn't cause this. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. You got to remember this. This is important. A lot of people don't really know. The majority of childhood sexual abuse is committed by persons known to the victim. Okay? Everybody says stranger danger, stranger danger. 93% of perpetrators are family members or close family friends. Only 7% are strangers. Only 7% are strangers. And 14% of abusers are, yes, women. Women do sexually abuse men. And that surprises a lot of people, but about 14% do abuse the men. So, that's some of the stigmas we got to get over. Like I said, I'm just talking a little bit each week about this whole month will be chapter 1. So in closing, a couple things. One, we must quit playing the victim and blaming everyone for our problem. Okay, there's a solution. We've got to get a good mentor to help us walk through the process, validate our feelings, and help us process those feelings so that we can quit playing the victim and quit blaming everyone for our own problems. We as Americans, as citizens in the United States, in the world, as human beings, we need to quit stigmatizing the victim. It's not their fault. It is not their fault. There's so much behind all this. So, my father just died, and my stepfather got a hold of me. The man was my stepfather. He knew exactly what he was doing. That's just one case. Uncle Johnny's been taking Bobby out to camping for a year because Daddy's not around, and everything's been cool. And all of a sudden, Uncle Johnny decides he wants to start molesting little Timmy, and he's not going to say nothing because he doesn't want to lose that father figure. He doesn't want to lose those camping trips. So there's so much emotional and psychological stuff that's tied into this. It seems these people can. It seems we are willing, as America, as people, what I've seen, and not again, I can't talk in general, but it seems we are willing to sacrifice the lives of young boys to save face in the family. Young boys and young women to save face in the family. The family is already broken. If there's a family member molesting a family member, the family is already broken. So let's get help for the entire family. And it started with the victims, okay? Everything's fixable. Everything's fixable. But we have to stop this charade of, well, I'm going to act like it never happened or it'll go away. It doesn't go away. It stays with the victims for a long time. So we need to wake up and start helping these families. And believe me, I understand the families why they don't want to say nothing. You know, they don't. It's sad what I hear and what I see out there, but somehow we got to break the stigma, and we got to start getting these kids help at an early age. Hey, look, with 80% of sexual abuse victims having chemical dependency problems, and I've talked to two facilities lately where the one, he said 99% of the inventories he does with men all were sexually abused. And another facility said 95% of their men were sexually abused. It creates a lot of problems. And so we can't fix everybody. I can't fix everybody. I can't change what's happened in the past. But, you know, maybe one person at a time, we can start changing the future for our children. Okay? You know, like I say, if you were to sit with the victims like I have, you'd see and understand the damage that sexual abuse does for both boys and girls. It's devastating. Absolutely devastating. And I would ask you this. What if it was your child that was being molested? What would you do? What would you do? Okay. So there's more on this whole subject in my book, you know, Healing the Man Within. You can get it on Amazon.com. Just go to Amazon.com. You get it there. My life coaching, I'm starting to pick up some clients. So if you're interested in life coaching, whether it's your addictions, abuse, you're just stuck in life, spiritual, it doesn't matter. I try to cover it all. I work with men. I work with couples. Go to changeyourlifestorynow.com. Changeyourlifestorynow.com. Kathy and I are doing a couples communication workshop on January 28th, right here at the house from 11 to 2. It's going to be really fun. You know, it'll be some work, but we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. That's what relationships are supposed to be, is fun. So I think if you go to my webpage, changemylifestorynow.com, there is a page for that. Just go to it, fill out the contact information, and I'll send you an invoice and you're registered, okay? And then right across America is in the swing of things. We're starting our fundraising. If you go to changeyourlifestorynow.com, there's a page for the ride. You can review a lot of stuff on there. I'm rebuilding the Courageous Healers website right now. When that gets up and running, it's going to be a lot nicer, a lot more user-friendly. So I will let you know when that happens. So, other than that, I think that's it for today. I thank you all for joining me. Have a super blessed night. If nobody tells you they love you today, Randy does, but more importantly, God does.